Back in the day, much of known space was wild, unexplored frontier. The nations were young then, mostly having been isolated from the rest of the verse, unknowing of the wonders to be found out there. Once the first colonizers settled outside their home territories, though, it was as if someone threw gasoline on a fire. Scientific exploration exploded, and the various young factions raced across the stars, accumulating wealth and power. With science comes industry, innovation, and might. Didn't take long for the factions to establish their centralized power and levy it across multiple systems. Guess it wasn't really a surprise then, what happened when the factions first met. Interstellar disputes erupted on the fringes of each faction's space, which eventually escalated into war. It was a race for control over planets, systems, and resources. Battles were waged for years, sometimes reaching conclusions, only to be reignited again over something else. The fighting devastated several planets, and many lives were lost. Eventually, a cross-faction treaty was developed by those who saw more benefits in collaboration than domination. The treaty simply laid out the ground rules for how factions were to interact, and when other factions would get involved. Essentially, the same kind of stuff still happened, but at least it was controlled, and the in-between times were filled with inter-faction communication and trade. There never has been a more prosperous time in the history of the verse. At least, that's what they'll have us common folk believe. And this is where we find ourselves, as we sail across the glittering skies. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the very beginnings of our Glittering Skies solo RPG game campaign. I am very excited to get diving into all this exciting stuff. In a separate video, I have already gone through the rather mechanical and maybe not as interesting, but still necessary process of character creation and figuring out all the logistics of how our character is going to work. Kind of get the basis of who Bricor Hefabri, as we have come to know him as, who he is, and what he's all about. Decided to go with Bricor as the pronunciation of his name. I think, people close to him calling him Brick for short is kind of a funny sort of a little adage, so I'm going with that. Bricor Hefabri is the name of our man, the star of our show. And today we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the narrative side of who Bricor is and who he surrounds himself with. We decided that we want to have Bricor be the captain of a crew, and so today we get to explore what each individual member looks like, what their names are, what they're all about, how they contribute to the overall success of the team that Bricor has put together for himself, and what they happen to be up to at this very moment. As we jump into this campaign, in media res, we get to discover a little bit more of the history of the verse itself and where our heroes or anti-heroes find themselves. We did find out last time that Bricor is a little bit of a past. Rather interesting. He's a criminal as a background for our character. So he has a certain mechanical repercussions of having that background and experience in life. But an interesting thing that we did find out during character creation also was that this is not his current way of life. So today we're going to run through all of that, find out what he is up to, who he's doing it with, and who he's doing it for. So this is our guy. So I'm going to be leaning pretty heavily on the Mythic GME 2nd edition for some inspiration and to kind of get a better idea of what's going on with all of these people. And I think a good place to start would be Rakor's story. Now, I am kind of tempted to honestly leave the backstory box mostly empty, just because I think it's going to be interesting to kind of, since it is a criminal background, I want to be able to discover that as the game is being played, as opposed to, having all those details right off the bat. Just because I think that keeping it loose and a little bit ambiguous will help us to kind of tie interesting threads together and maybe create more spontaneous sort of exciting connections that we normally wouldn't have had we gone through and specifically lined out where he's been, what he's done, who he's done it with and for, and all that sort of stuff. So I think that is what the approach we're going to take with this. So now, for those of you who are interested in the Traveler's Tome mechanics and the way that the game is working, you'll see that this is a new tab of the document, the single document that contains the entirety of the Traveler's Tome game. So this page is going to be where we go to keep track of our character's backstory and add on to that as things develop and we discover potential new connections to our past that maybe the character himself didn't even realize up until that point upon discovery. So this is going to be basically our backstory summary. Currently all we know is he has a criminal past of some kind. So this goes into all the detail of what it looks like to proceed through challenge tracks. And these are what we're going to be using to basically, whenever we come across foes, we encounter foes in combat, they will have their own challenge tracks, and this will basically kind of be like their HP bar to see how close we are to defeating them as we engage in combat and make those combat rolls. Also, the main purpose for this page would be to keep track of quests that we take on and tasks that we promise that we will accomplish for other characters in the game. So there's a variety of different tiers of difficulty. So you can face down legendary foes, you can take on a task that might be considered dangerous, and the amount of progress you make for each success as you roll to accomplish those things will vary depending on the difficulty of said task. There is also a page specifically for campaign notes. This will be very helpful for us, well, particularly for me, in the after session, to kind of keep track of what happened and where we left off so we can pick up pretty easily next time. So you can see that this is quite extensive. We can take on quite a lot of things all at once, and we can add to or remove as necessary. Good rule of thumb though, you want to try and keep your active tasks to a certain kind of minimum. You don't want to have so many threads going on at once that you kind of run into an analysis paralysis and you don't know which way to turn next. So that is a little bit of an explanation of a new part of the sheet we haven't seen before. So what are we going to do today here? With all of this in mind about backstory, the crew, trying to figure out where we are in the verse, I think the best place to start will be with who I think Rakor is going to be. What kind of character is he, right? Obviously, his physical description is still kind of up in the air, so that's kind of intentional. I want to leave it that way for the time being. But who is Brakor? I mentioned in another video also that I wanted his personality to kind of emulate a cross between Mal from Firefly and Han Solo from Star Wars. Kind of just a freelancer, a little bit of leadership mixed in, kind of responsible for a crew, a team, but they're all kind of aiming for the benefit of each other as long as it's convenient. So, kind of a little bit swindlers, maybe they're a little, on the edge of the law, but not necessarily crossing the line into illegal territory. But maybe they will have to kind of dip their toes every once in a while. Who knows? The verse is kind of a wild west of space, as far as I'm concerned. That's kind of the tone that I want to take with it. So, with all that in mind, Brakor himself, I kind of want him to be definitely more of a charismatic individual, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he's the most empathetic individual in the world either. I think that he does care enough to kind of support his crew and be there for them when they need in order to make sure that they can keep on going and get the job done. That's really what he's after. Especially kind of keeping in mind the fact that he does have a criminal background. There might be, it could go either way, the kind of influence that has on his, the way he treats people and the way he interacts with people. He might be a little bit more reserved, or he might be a little more understanding of certain individuals and kind of lenient towards certain situations, depending on who is involved. Outside of this, I kind of think that Brakor is definitely the kind of person who's leverages his charm to kind of manipulate and get what he wants out of people. And he's definitely no pushover either. He knows enough about the verse and what he's doing to be able to negotiate effectively. And he doesn't take no for an answer very often. So that's kind of the personality of Brakor. And like I said, he's the captain. He's the one who's in charge of securing business, whatever that business may be. And he's going to be the one who is organizing and leading and coordinating the rest of the team. And probably most often taking the charge on most diplomatic and potentially even less diplomatic encounters. So this is who Brakor is. He is the center of it all, the brains behind the operation. He is cunning and charming and relentless. So, what is it that they are actually doing? Where do they find themselves right now? I want to find out where they are, what they're doing, and why they're doing it. So this is going to be basically setting the very first scene for our game. So, let us check out the Mythic GME 2nd edition. Here we go. So there's a couple really cool tables in here with, I say a couple, there are a lot of really cool tables in the Mythic GME emulator. Everything from adventure tone elements to alien species descriptors, character goals and actions and appearance, descriptions for places, descriptions for cities, character flaws and traits, creature abilities and descriptions, curses. There's even a very specific table which I appreciate for this sci-fi theme that's called a starship descriptor. So if we encounter, a significant or unique starcraft out in the verse outside of our own, we get to generate at least the general vibe of what that vessel is about and what it looks like. So there is a table in here known as character actions. And so that is what I'm going to be rolling against. Character actions general. Going to be rolling against this table with a D100 to determine what it is that they are up to and what they are doing. So, this table has a lot of kind of single word prompts that will kind of inspire what our results are going to be based on how we interpret them. So I think I'm going to roll at least 2 to kind of get a pretty solid context for the current task they have taken on for themselves. Let's go ahead and roll this. A 24 gives us creepy. That's interesting, so I'm going to make note of that. So creepy, and then I'm going to roll a second one. Let's see if this kind of reveals a little bit more information. A 7. Assist. Creepy assist. So this one might take a second for me to interpret. Creepy and assist. Assist, creepy. That's kind of the order that my mind goes to for these 2 prompts. That's kind of strange that creepy is a character action, to be honest. Unless they mean creepy as in sneaky? Like creeping around, trying not to be seen. So maybe, you know what, I'm going to roll a third one to get some extra inspiration here and really nail down what this is all about. 94. Trust. Trust. Okay. So I think I have an idea for what they are currently doing. So the team, creepy, assist, and trust are the roles that we got for the character actions. So I'm taking creepy to mean that they're creeping around, they're being kind of stealthy, they are going incognito. Yes, I like that idea. And they are assisting someone in this mission to try to gain their trust. So this is a new client that they have encountered. Someone that they have not done a lot of business with prior to. They want to do more business with this person. And so in order to gain their trust so that they will get basically awarded these higher tier, higher end tasks, these quests to get sent on, they must assist this client in creeping around and discovering something. So that is kind of the idea. I'm going to probably make one more roll just to kind of really nail down what it is that they're after. Like, what are they sneaking around for? What are they trying to achieve with this stealth mission? So I'm going to go back to roll 20 again, and I'm going to be rolling this time against the adventure tone, because I think that will really set the theme for this stealth mission that they're trying to gain the trust of this new employer. So 51 on the adventure tone table, and 51 is intellect. Okay, I think I know what's going on now. So they are undercover, trying to sneak around and get close to a particular merchant, a particular space merchant with very lucrative and expensive trade endeavors. And what they want to do is get information about potentially what is being traded, where it's being traded to, and who it's being traded to. Basically just trying to uncover the trade secrets of this particular space merchant. And in reporting this information back to this new client, they will be able to gain that person's trust in getting assigned these higher level, more important and more rewarding jobs. I really like the way that sounds. It seems like a very cool adventure so far. We haven't even just started yet. So I'm going to take a second and record that here. Alright, so I have nailed down basically a quick little summary of what this whole rolling scenario has revealed. So, currently, the crew finds themselves on a stealth mission to uncover the trade secrets of a space merchant so that they can report their findings to a rival, who is their client. This client is an up-and-coming influence in the verse, and the team wants to get on their good side early so that they can get the best picks of the jobs that this client will offer. Very, very interesting. So, right off the bat, this gives us our starting challenge. And this is going to be discover the space merchant's trade secrets. So I've named this challenge, and now what I'm going to do is assign it a difficulty rank. I'm going to call this risky just because I don't think it's going to be necessarily that difficult to kind of work your way in incognito and extract a space merchant's trade secrets. I feel like with the knowledge and expertise that Bricor has, and potentially the skills of his crew as well, which we're going to explore soon, they should be able to pull this off with relative ease. I feel like Bricor knows what needs to be done to achieve a mission of this caliber, and I think he's pretty well prepared to charm his way right on in and get what he needs pretty easily. But I'm not going to say that it's going to be a simple task either. I'm expecting that this merchant, this space merchant that they're trying to kind of uncover the secrets of, is probably a well-established individual himself in the verse, and will likely have, slightly more advanced security measures to make sure that this sort of stuff doesn't happen. So it's going to be a risky endeavor for Bricor, but definitely not something he's totally unprepared for. So that is our starting mission. It's exciting. It's starting to turn into a real game, you guys. So, now that that is set and done, there is the option of using a timer with this scenario. And to be honest, I think that's kind of a cool idea. It's basically, if the timer completes along the track before the progress does, then boom, instantaneously the challenge is failed, it's over, and you lost your chance to accomplish that task. I have the feeling that this space merchant is going to be acting on whatever, sort of plans he has, wrapped up in his private notes pretty soon. And that's kind of the idea, that this rival merchant is up and coming. He might not even necessarily just be a merchant, he might be a little bit more than that. But this rival force, trying to subvert whatever this, maybe not even subvert, but just kind of become aware before it actually happens of what's going down. So I think there is going to be a time aspect that will come into play here, and we'll explore how that works later. But for now, we are still in the process of setting up our crew and where we find ourselves. So how about we dive into that next? Let's dive into another part of the Traveler's Tome that we haven't seen just yet. That's going to be the Allies / NPCs page. So, this looks like a lot of boxes and stuff to fill in, and that's kind of because it is. This is a way to keep track of all of our allies who will be assisting us on adventures, who aren't controlled by players, PCs. These are NPC allies who will be assisting us as we go around and explore, potentially with combat, potentially with negotiation, potentially with investigation, finding stuff, repairing stuff. I'm thinking of having a pretty diverse crew to kind of have a broad spectrum of help that'll be able to benefit us. So beneath that we have our regular NPCs, so people who aren't accompanying us on journeys necessarily, but characters that are in the game that are going to be recurring and we'll be talking to and visiting frequently. These will be kind of where we keep track of all of those important characters and our relationship to them. And then there's also a section here for the various factions of the verse. So I'm planning to kind of establish a certain number of individual factions that will have kind of territorial control over certain areas of space. And we will get to explore the map, the star map of the verse, real soon here. But first, we have a crew that I want to develop. So, let's take a look and see who our crew actually is. So, I have set up 5 individuals who will be accompanying me on my adventures and assisting in however way they can to achieve what we're out to do. And that will vary job by job, and maybe particular crew members will come in more handy than others in certain instances, and we'll get to explore that as we go along. So currently I don't have any names for them just yet. We will get to develop the entire character right here, right now. So let's go to the first one. Now, I kind of chose the role that the individual crew members will be filling, the race, the gender, all that sort of stuff. I've kind of had an idea for in my head already, so I went ahead and got some art made up for them. So this is going to be our intelligence officer, essentially, on board our ship. And she will be the one who will be kind of helping us with information gathering, and perhaps even, since this is going to be an incognito mission with trying to gather information, she will come in very, very handy in this particular instance. But what's her name? What is her name? Well, I'm going to use the same method that I used to come up with Bracor's name, and that's with a set of assorted magic cards once again. So I'm going to draw 5 cards, take a look at the first syllable and the name of each card, and then line them up in a pattern that I think is appealing to generate these characters' names. There are tons of name generators out on the internet, I'm aware, but I don't know. I just feel like this is, as randomized as you can possibly get. I feel like these are going to be quite unique as opposed to some of the tailored generators that are out there. It just feels a little bit more natural, a little more original, you could say. So let's go ahead and do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, this is an interesting combination. I think I am going to go with Absol. That's kind of an interesting name. So I'm going to put that down. Absol. And I think we're just going to leave it at that. That's pretty unique. Like I said, it's a very very organic feeling. And honestly, I like the sound of it probably better than anything that I would be able to generate by other means. So, this is Absol. She is our intelligence officer, and what are her characteristics? So, I'm going to actually go ahead and list her down as an ally. Now, there's a traits box here that I would get to basically roll some characteristics for her. And this is going to be entirely random, so I'm very excited to see what the GME thinks of Absol. So I think I'm just going to roll a couple of times on the character descriptor table. So that's going to be a couple of D100s. So let's go ahead and get that out. So number 1 is 12. 12 is careless. Great. I can tell this is going to go swimmingly already. So she is a little careless. That's quite curious. I'm wondering how that's going to work out. So let's roll one more to kind of get an idea of what she's really all about. Another D100, and we get, wow, opposite ends of the spectrum here, 12 and 95. 95 is unusual. Yeah, she definitely has that look about her, doesn't she? Okay, so she's a little bit careless, a little bit aloof, and very unusual. So this makes me feel like Absol is a little bit of an outcast, even from regular elven society. Seeing that she's careless, I don't necessarily think that she's careless in the way that, she's a kind of like a bumbling fool, just doesn't pay attention to a whole lot of, her physical surroundings and just makes mistakes and gets sloppy and, doesn't necessarily give a crap about what she's doing. I think she's careless almost as if like on an empathetic level. She doesn't have like a great concern for other people's feelings or thoughts, and that could tie into kind of her unusual nature that at this point she might have endured so much kind of judgment and maybe even bullying or just kind of almost like being exiled from society, that she just doesn't give a crap anymore. And she's just like, I don't care what you think, I don't care what you feel, I am who I am, and I am going to continue being that way, so deal with it. I think that kind of fits the bill for Absol. Now, being that she is the intelligence officer, I think her main stat is going to be intellect. That is what she is going to be strong in regards to abilities. So I'm going to give this a shot because I have not tried the system utilizing NPC allies before. Actually, this is my first time running the Traveler's Tome as a solo system, so there may be some tweaks along the way depending on how things shake out. But I'm planning to kind of start all of these allies with a base skill level of 10, which is right dead middle of the range. It's advanced to the point where it's pretty average. Probably essentially will be succeeding around 50% of the time, or less, a little under 50%. Because we roll the 2d10s and then compare the total cumulative result to the score to see if we're successful. And again, we want to roll under our ability score to count as a success. So this whole game, everything we roll, lower is generally better. That's how this system works. So, intellect of 10, She's going to have a health value as well, because there's potential for her to become involved in combat alongside of us, as well as all the rest of these allies that we generate. So, similar to us, she starts with 5 health. That will probably not be a changing number. I think that's pretty much static for the entirety of the game. Again, we'll see how things shake out. Maybe some tweaks to the system will be needed. But for now, that's how we're ruling it. So there is the potential to kind of develop a little bit more of the history behind this character and create essentially a relationship challenge track, which I think is kind of an interesting idea. I find the relationship development system in the Mass Effect games and stuff like that quite interesting. That kind of role play where you can actually like make progress towards building your relationship with a particular NPC as a player character. And I think that'd be cool to have that represented in this game as well. I think I might go ahead. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and kind of set up what each of these characters will be looking for so that we have an idea of how we might go about either building up our relationship positively, or if we do make certain choices that maybe they don't necessarily agree with negatively, maybe progress can be removed from a relationship progress track. And perhaps if it's if a relationship track is too low for a certain amount of time, then maybe they consider leaving the crew. But we'll get into all that nitty-gritty later on. Let's just kind of set up what it is that each of these people are after. So let's take a look here, and I think I'm going to roll in the character actions general table again, or maybe I'll roll on the background. You know what? I feel like that's actually more relevant. I think I'm going to try rolling on the character background table as opposed to the general actions. Yes. So let's do that. Let's find out what is it that Absol, as she is known, is after. So let's do 2 D100s to get our inspiration. So we get a 92. 92 is... Ooh, trauma. Ooh. Going deep right off the bat. So, trauma, and what else? The D100, we get a 43. Traditional, tragic, roleplay, backstory. There was family trauma. Family trauma. How very unfortunate. I already feel bad for Absol. Man. Well, now let's go ahead and I want to get some more inspiration for what exactly the nature of this family trauma is. So I'm going to go with Adventure Tone table again to give us an idea. What was up? Whew! Wow, right. A straight 100. Interesting. So, wild family trauma. Wild indeed. Huh. A wild family trauma. So this makes me feel like maybe part of what makes Absol unusual is the fact that she is afraid of the wild, of the uncivilized areas in the verse, whether that be on planets in space, etc. Maybe she's not comfortable outside of civilization due to a family trauma that occurred in her past. Maybe someone has become lost out in the wild somewhere in the verse. This is getting juicy. So I'm going to go ahead and You know what? I am simply going to put these prompts in, and we will discover exactly what Opsal is after by talking to her, by exploring with her, and encountering things out in the world. But we know that she has family trauma related to the wild. Okay. I feel like that's appropriate, just getting started. Like, you don't just know... I don't want to know every detail about all of these characters going in. I feel like perhaps this crew is relatively new. Maybe they've done a couple of jobs already working together. But I definitely don't think that we're coming into this story at a point where they are a developed, necessarily, crew family already at this point. I think it's going to take some work to really uncover the nitty-gritty of who these people are. But this is definitely a very solid foundation, and I'm excited to explore more of Absol's past. But yeah, she's quite the unusual individual, isn't she? But that is Absol. So, who else is on our crew? We have this tiefling woman who definitely seems to be the warrior type, and she is going to be the brawn of the group. She's going to be the defender, the muscle, the one who is basically gets all of the heavy lifting done, maybe literally and figuratively. So let's go ahead, and again, I'm going to draw 5 magic cards and attempt to come up with a name. Ba-ba-ba. Okay, so I've already seen a really cool name combination. I think I'm going to go with this one. It just sounds so cool. Yeah, I like it. I'm going with it. So this crew member will be known as Ekumar. Or Ekumar. Ekumar. There we go. Ekumar. Quite the interesting character armor. Especially for a space sort of themed game. So I'm thinking that this is probably more traditional style armor, that she's kind of like a tribal warrior of the tiefling people, and she brings all of that knowledge and expertise to her work as a crew member aboard our ship. That's going to be interesting to explore. So let's go into this. Let's do the mechanics. Ekumar is our tiefling warrior. Traits. Let's go ahead and establish her traits. But yes. So I'm rolling on the character table. Mythic GME. So let's find out what are Ekumar's traits. So let's do D100s and see what we get. 86. Ooh. Interesting. This one's stealthy. So she's stealthy? What else is she? Oops. Let's roll that properly this time. 78. Stealthy and questioning. Now that's unique. Stealthy questioning. Okay, so let's go ahead and put that down. So what does this mean? That she's stealthy and questioning? It is a great question, my questioning friend. I think that since she's probably going to be the brawn of the group, not necessarily stealthy as in, physically unable to be detected, but I feel like she doesn't talk much about her past, that she's a little bit more reserved about herself. She'll probably kind of beat around the bush a little bit, maybe, But she will redirect and ask a lot of questions about a lot of different things. She will try to redirect the conversation topic to whoever she's talking to, or perhaps the people that are around them at the time being. And maybe she's just curious about, maybe she hasn't been exposed to a ton of different cultures across the verse, and she'll have a lot of questions about why certain people do certain things, and just kind of be more of on the curious side as an individual. So I kind of like that. I think that makes for a very interesting character dynamic. But yes, Ikumar is going to be our might ally. That is going to be her focus. She will also have the 5 health, starting as a base. And now let's go down to the character background table and roll a couple of ideas off of that. So, for Kumar, character background, rolling a couple D100s, get 33. Ooh, 33 is disaster. Disaster. That doesn't sound great. So let's roll another D100. A 2. Disaster. Ooh, abuse. Okay. Disaster and abuse. That does not sound great. Again, very tragic, all of this. Our NPCs have seen some stuff, it seems like. My guy is a criminal. The one girl's had family trauma. This person has experienced some disastrous abuse, potentially. What I'm going to do now is roll on the adventure tone to really get a better idea of what that means. So 40. 40 on the adventure table is goals. Goals. Disaster, abuse, goals. So, I think that perhaps in the tribe that she was originally part of, they had lofty and grand ideas for what Ikumar's life would be like, and perhaps the drive that was instilled in her, and even her peers and her elders abused her to the point that they would try to get her to achieve those lofty goals, and perhaps she didn't make the mark, and perhaps there was some sort of disaster that befell her, and maybe she was exiled from her culture as well as a result. I don't know for sure. So we're going to have to discover exactly the details behind all of that in-game, which might be tricky, as she's not necessarily most open about her past, as we see through her traits. So yes, let's record these down. Disaster, abuse, goals. Oops. If I could spell, that would help. Yeah, so this is kind of shaping up so far to seem like we're accumulating a crew of misfits over here. All these people that have been ostracized from their own cultures and the circles that they were raised in, which would kind of make sense, honestly. That's probably the kind of people that a former criminal might want to take under his wing and try to rally to be a force of prosperity in the verse. Alright, so that is the Ikumar character. We have 3 to go. So this is our dwarf mechanic. I want him to be the guy who can maintain the ship, keep things running, make repairs when needed, and generally be our puzzle solver and tinkerer. Maybe he'd be the guy that we could go to for weapons upgrades and stuff like that. I'm really excited for the idea of this character. And let's start off with a name. Again, 5 magic cards. Let's draw it real quick. Okay, I think I've got it. I like the sound of this name. So our dwarven mechanic friend is going to be named Konath. It's a rather unique spelling, as it has a G-N-A-T-H. But I do like the sound of it, Konath. It's kind of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? So our friend Konath. Let's go ahead and get him into the character sheet. What are his traits? So, again, we're going to the handy dandy character table. And we're going to need a couple D100 rolls. Here we go. So now this is probably the most extensive part of the setup, just because I have allowed myself kind of a rather large crew. You know, there's going to be 6 people total, including Brick. I'm going to call him Brick. So, yeah, this is just going to be the most lengthy aspect of the setup process. But hopefully, we'll be able to really nail down a rather interesting crew, and all of these guys will be great story threads to tie in as we go along and learn more about them. So, rolling on the traits again, we have 39. This is some very interesting prompts on these tables here. Our friend is fragrant. Yes, so that could mean a variety of things. So let's go ahead and roll another D100. Get another idea of who Konath is. 49. Oh, man. He's fragrant and he is helpless. Some pretty strong traits you got there, friend Konath. So he is fragrant and helpless. So now what do these mean? Does it mean that he can't do anything? He's worthless on the team? He's just there to stink up the place? I don't necessarily think that's what that means. What it could mean is maybe he actually is a bit of a clean freak. Maybe the fragrance is kind of like a quality where he needs everything to be squeaky, spotless, clean, immaculate. Maybe he's that kind of mechanic where the engine, even with all of its, potential oil and rust and dust, has to be in tip-top shape all the time. Maybe he's maybe he can actually tell if something's off by smell. That would be quite interesting. Maybe he himself is also fragrant. Maybe he makes sure that he is himself is a clean individual. Maybe he's just a clean freak. Because I don't want necessarily him to be like a stink bomb. I feel like that's a overused trope. I'm going to go the opposite direction with this. I'm going to say that he's a clean freak. It's like a pleasant fragrance is what he's after, both in his own person and around the ship. Well, it's good to know that he's not letting the place, get all messed up and just go to crap. He's actually making sure that the entire ship, top to bottom, is spotless. And I think Brick will be able to appreciate that in him. Now, helpless. I think helpless is kind of tying back into this clean freak sort of mentality about Konath. I think that it's helpless to try and dissuade Konath from engaging in these cleaning activities, even if it seems like the most redundant, mundane, unnecessary task to do. He's going to do it one way or another, and nothing will stop him. And in that way, he is helpless in his obsession with cleanliness and orderliness and tidiness. So he's definitely got a lot of a kind of OCD. That's kind of the idea that we're going with. So I'm going to make a note here that he is a freak. I think that'll be very interesting to explore, especially since he is our mechanic. Now, he is going to be a clever son of a gun. So cleverness is going to be his strong suit. 5 health, as is the standard. So let's put that in. Now, what is Konath's background? Let's go ahead and dig into that. Character background table, here we go. Let's do a couple of rolls. So far, they've all turned out to be quite sad. I hope that this clean freak ends up with a slightly more, satisfying life experience up until joining our crew. 52 on the character background. Harm. Interesting. Harm. 52 is harm, and then roll another D on 100. 22. Ooh, interesting. Harm community. I really am kind of looking over this background table, and it doesn't really seem like it kind of lends itself towards the happy sort of, grew up with 2 parents, the parents loved him, there was no problems, all of his siblings got together really well, went to church on a Sunday and basically decided one day maybe we'd go adventuring. That sounds like something fun to do. Don't think it kind of lends itself towards that sort of style of background. So harm community, that sounds pretty intense. What is the tone, the adventure tone of this background? 66. That's always a good number, isn't it? Ooh, military. Okay. You know what? Yes, that's what's going on here. So, prior to joining our crew, Konath actually did have a happy life growing up. He did have a happy family who loved each other. They grew up together in their community, and it was immaculate. Everything was perfect. Until one day, when his colony world eventually came under siege by a rival faction's military, and his community was harmed by that rival military, and now he finds himself adrift in the verse and come up under the wing of Brick and joined his crew. Maybe he'll be able to find new purpose here amongst the stars. So, whatever kind of history our Konath character has, it involved the harm of his community at the hands of a military. Very, very interesting. So now that's 3. We get 2 more to go. Again, this is the longest part of the process, but I find it to be quite fascinating so far. All of these characters are turning out to be very interesting characters. So here we go. Crew number 4. This is a half-orc pilot. He's going to be the guy who is flying the ship, getting us where we need to go, and maybe he'll be actually looking at potential ship upgrades or new ships for us to upgrade into. So that'll be cool. I like the idea that this guy is kind of like a Indiana Jones-ish kind of Han Solo type. I like these hybrid character ideas that he's adventurous and but he's also kind of he's making sure that he's getting something out of whatever he's doing. But let's figure out, what is this guy's name? Again, 5 magic cards. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this magic card process takes a little bit longer than I had expected, but honestly, I like the options that it gives and the flexibility, because oftentimes these card names are actually quite long, so you can kind of stretch or squeeze this first syllable a little bit, maybe add or remove a couple of letters to actually give you a little bit more variety in the naming options. So the one that I've come up with for this character is Tarev, or Tarev. 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 So, what is Tarev all about? Let us roll up some traits for Tarev. Tarev. Probably gotta pronounce his name different every time I say it. Just go along with it. It's fine. So, again, here we go. We are looking for the character table. Rolling D100s. Here we go. First one is 38. Interesting, okay. So 38 is fortunate. So maybe he's lucky. Yeah, he just happens to have good luck wherever he goes. Another D100, here we go. 88. 38 and 88. 88 is strong. So maybe he's physically strong? Maybe he just has a strong personality. I kind of like that idea. So he's fortunate and strong. Tarev seems to be having more luck than the rest of our crew so far. Fortunate, strong. Yeah, so he's maybe he's a gambler, actually. That's kind of like tying into the Han Solo side of things a little bit. Maybe he's just lucky in gambling. Maybe he's, just generally a lucky person. Things seem to go his way for some reason. And maybe because of that, he's gotten a little bit of cockiness to him, a bit of a strong personality. And maybe he leans into that and kind of exploits that to his benefit. So I like that he is a fortunate guy. He's got a strong personality. And being that he is our pilot, I think that he is going to be definitely boosting us in the agility side of things. Just because of the way that I'm running this and the way that I want these individuals to tie into the story. I'm not necessarily min-maxing, like making sure that I have NPC allies that will cover my weak spots. There are a couple of these that fall into that category, but that's not necessarily the main reason why I'm going for these allies. I don't want to have to rely on them mostly, to get me through certain situations, because failure is a part of the story. Failure is what adds complications and drama. So playing into failure and kind of elaborating and using that as an opportunity to explore is really what I'm after with this game. So I won't be leaning on these guys to kind of get me through certain situations, but I will have them for the narrative implications and also just to even the playing field a little bit, because if I'm come up by myself against a large group of foes, I'm probably going to get taken down pretty easily on my own. So that's the idea with having the crew here. So agility, base 10 for his skill, focus, And now let's discover what his background is like. So character background table, here we go again. D100s. 66. I feel, yep, we have rolled this before. Military. Okay. 66 military. What else? Oops. 14. That's a new one. Ooh, burden. Burden of the military. So maybe he was intended to be a fighter pilot or something like that. Maybe he didn't want to get involved in all that, and he got lucky enough to be able to escape that situation. I like the way that sounds, but let's quickly go up and confirm with the adventure tone, since we've been doing that with all the others. Just seems fair. 32. Fearful. Fearful. So maybe he was lucky enough to escape the burden of being in the military, but that doesn't mean that the military was happy about that. Maybe they are actually pursuing him, and he's fearful of what they might do if they find him. That is potentially complicating. So, military burden and fearful. This is turning out to be quite the crew. I do enjoy the way that this is turning out. All of these guys, even with these few roles that we've been doing, I feel like have such a rich past already fleshed out, and I can't wait to dig into it even more as we play. So that's Tariv. Quick and easy. I feel like that's pretty much a summary of his personality as well. He's to the point, he's clear, he's concise, and I like that about him. Now, I did want to include a artificial member of our crew, just because I find it to be quite fascinating, and I feel like, you know, C-3PO, all of those kind of robotic personas actually add quite a bit to kind of just the potential comic relief, and even the story, bringing the story more in depth and just adding that extra layer of kind of like almost groundedness, because they're not necessarily a true person, but they do have a personality, or at least emulate that. And I feel like artificial intelligences and characters, robotic characters that actually have, you know, expressions and quote unquote feelings about certain situations, kind of add a rather intriguing layer to stories. And I was actually quite honestly considering running this game basically through ChatGPT, and using ChatGPT to kind of give me what this character's responses to certain conversations and situations would be. So I'm gonna have to dig into that and do some research, see if that'll actually end up working out, run some tests. But if I can, that'd be kind of interesting to do. I'd be really curious to see how that shakes out. But again, we gotta start with a name. So, what is this guy's name? Let's draw 5 edge cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this one was a lot quicker. I just liked the sound of the name. I spotted it right off the bat, and I think that's the one I'm going to go with. I am going to call our Mr. Robot friend here Devin. Devin. Not Kevin, he's Devin. I like the sound of that. Now, I don't know if this is a name that he chose for himself or not. I'm going to say that it is. I'm going to say that he chose the name Devin for himself from somewhere. Maybe we'll learn a little bit more about that as we go along. So, what's up with Devin? So his traits. Let's go to the character table. Go ahead and we'll roll our 2d100s. First one is a 79. Oh, interesting. He's a quiet robot. Typically doesn't have too much to say. That could be rather interesting to explore. And then 98. Weak. Ew. Quiet and weak. Interesting. So maybe... Interesting. This is definitely not the idea that I had an idea for a personality type that maybe this guy would have. This is going in a very different direction. But that's cool. I'm going to go with that. So quiet and weak. So what does that mean? What does it mean to have a quiet and weak robot? So maybe he doesn't say a whole lot of his own volition. Maybe he just kind of responds and doesn't necessarily initiate conversation. And what does it mean by weak? How does that play into it? Maybe he's not... Ooh, I have an idea. So maybe he's not necessarily like a utility bot. He wasn't built for combat or, moving cargo around on a ship or something like that. Maybe he's more of like an experiment. I kind of like the idea that Brick either... I don't think Brick would have... I don't think Brick or any of the other crew members would have built him. I think maybe he was found. Like he was a found experiment that someone had been running. And he doesn't have a very strong frame, and his servos aren't necessarily like industrial grade, so he's not really a combat bot by any means, and he's just kind of a quiet robot. He doesn't necessarily start up conversation. He will just respond when prompted. It's kind of cute. I like Devin. I'm very interested in how that shakes out. So what is Devin's stack going to be? And to be quite honest with you, I am not sure which of these it's going to end up being. I think, maybe, to be honest with you, I want to roll and see if there's anything that really jumps out here. So I am personally a charm-focused individual. I have a cleverness, an intellect, and an agility, and a might. So basically all of these skills that are pretty much right next to these saving throw boxes. Charm, cleverness, intellect, agility, might. Maybe. Okay, so these are my options. I will roll a D1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Because I definitely don't think endurance is going to fit his style. Since, like I said, he's not particularly strong by any means. He's kind of a weak bot. So I'm going to roll a D6 and see which of these stats actually end up being his main focus. D6. 2. So, going clockwise. 1, 2. I was kind of thinking about this one, and I'm glad that I rolled this one. Willpower. So willpower is going to be Devin's skill. And what's interesting about this is when you look at the willpower skill, it kind of lends itself to, the nature of the universe, the energies that flow throughout, and the natural manipulation and integration with such things. So basically using your sheer force of will to kind of understand and interpret and control those things, those aspects of reality. Because druids and mystics and all those sorts would qualify as having a willpower focus in their skills. So I find this very interesting. Maybe Devin can kind of use the Force or something like that. That would be pretty interesting. An artificial intelligence that actually has like Force powers using his sheer will. That would be something to explore, something to unlock, something that we will find out mid-game, I betcha. We are almost there, friends. Last thing. What is this guy's background? So, Devin, reveal to us your mysteries. 54. 54 is heal. Heal. Okay. Oops. That's just a D10. Let me try that again. So, again, rolling on the character background table, we got heal, and now we have 29. Oh. Ooh. Heal and death. Now I have some ideas for what this could mean. Let's quickly jump up to the adventure tone, because we've been doing that for all of our characters. And I want to get an idea of what this actually is, what this means. Fearful. Fearful. Heal, death, fearful. Maybe this guy is a medic bot, and he uses his willpower to channel energy and restore health to other people. He's weak because he's not supposed to be a combat bot or a utility bot. This guy is a medic bot, and he is fearful of people around him dying. He is actually afraid of that and will do anything he can to prevent that. So now this is an interesting sort of maybe his original builder ended up getting sick, or caught in some sort of conflict and ended up getting killed and couldn't be healed. And now our friend Devin is fearful of death and will do everything he can to prevent it in the people around him. Now that is quite the interesting implication there. I'll explain why he's a little more quiet. He's, especially with processing everything going on a bajillion times a second, he's I can only imagine that maybe his little AI brain is just rolling through all of the potentially lethal situations in every single moment that goes by. And maybe that's why he's a little more quiet, is because he's concerned about getting too attached. Maybe he doesn't want to get attached because of the fact that he's surrounded by mortals, things that individuals, people that he can get connected to and then lose. Maybe perhaps that's what happened with his original builder, and he was found by our crew somehow wandering. That could very well be. Again, very tragic, but very intriguing. Heal, death, and fearful. So we're going to mark those down on our sheet. Very, very interesting. So we have a broad spectrum of a variety of characters on our crew, all very unique, and I am excited to dig into this story. I feel like Tarv and Brick will get along pretty well. I feel like their characteristics and traits line up pretty well with each other. Or they might end up butting heads, depending on how strong-willed and maybe bullheaded even Tarv ends up being. this is going to create quite the interesting dynamic. We'll just have to see how that plays out. So that is all 5 of our NPC allies. Look at that fully fleshed out crew. Amazing. So now we come to a choice. I have an idea for what our ship is going to look like. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do is very quickly pull up a representation of the ship. So let's go ahead and find that, because I found this one. I just thought it was so cool looking. It's very sleek, it's stylish, it is fast looking, and I like the idea that we do the jobs that we might need to get a quick in and out. It's not necessarily a cargo vessel, but this is our ship. Take a look at this beaut. Sleek, elegant, blue glowing, and I am in love with this. I just love the way this looks. It looks like a sports car in space. It even has a spoiler in the back. So I'm going to say that this may have even been acquired by ill-gotten means, depending on how long our friend Brick, this main character, has had this ship. But I am looking for a name for this fabulous vessel. So, anyone who has any ideas, please do submit in the comments below. So that is our ship. Beautiful looking. I love it. And we have a crew of 6 that mans it, and perhaps even spends time living aboard it, in between stopping stations in space, spaceports, and various planets across the verse. Now, we come to the final stages of our game setup. Man, oh man, here we go. We get to establish the factions. So, okay, so I have decided on the first one. So, basically, my idea for these factions is there has been years and years and years of conflict between the individual kind of cultures that would burgeoned out of their individual isolated spots across the verse, and as they came into contact with each other, conflicts arose, planets were conquered, resources were exchanged, and perhaps alliances were made, formed, broken, reformed in different ways. And I kind of came to the conclusion that I didn't want to have a faction for each individual culture. I feel like we're coming into the verse at a point where many of the cultures have become integrated with one another, and communication across the species has been stabilized and solidified. There's a common language, basically a common, the D&D 5e equivalent of just a universal language that is applicable for all people to communicate. But there are going to be 4, I've decided, factions across the verse, each with conflicting or allying interests. And each of these nations, essentially, have control over a specific niche corner of the verse, particular planets that are under their control and jurisdiction, potentially even law, that varies in between each faction, that specific rules that they will enforce. But the first one is called the Shanam Empire. So now we are going to, real quickly, find a table in the Mythic GME that will give us a good idea of the motivations behind each of these factions. I think the character motivations table will give us just that. So let's go ahead and roll a couple of D100s again, and we will get an idea of what these factions are all about, because if you're going to spend any time traveling across the verse, you're going to need to know a thing or two about each faction, especially if you're traveling in between faction-controlled spaces. So the first one we get is 22 on the character motivations table. 22 is environment. Environment. Curious. So now let's do another one real quick. D100. Get a 37. 37 on the table is hate. Hate environment. Okay. So now, real quick, let's go back here. I am going to go to the Adventure Tone table once more because I feel like this really does kind of solidify the true heart behind whatever these roles mean. So we get 67. 67, misfortune. Ooh, interesting. Oh, see, I was thinking initially the environment meant like the natural environment, the environment of a particular planet or something like that. But if it's an entire faction that spans multiple systems, it doesn't make sense why a single environment would inspire hate and misfortune. I think the Shanam Empire has had extreme misfortune in the political environment. Maybe they are a faction that has fallen out of favor with the people that reside under their rule and control, or amongst the leaders of the other factions. And as a result of this, there is a lot of hate that has unsatisfaction that has arisen from all of the struggles that this empire is currently facing, whether internally, externally, probably both, I would imagine. So now that is quite the interesting combination. So we have one struggling empire that has a lot of internal strife, whether that be with itself or with the other factions. And it's because of their misfortune in the political environment. Perhaps they've just been mishandling the resources that they control, and it has led to their economic downfall. This could be a very tenuous situation. Perhaps the verse finds itself in a position where one or more of these factions are on the brink of war. So, with all of that already brewing in the background, so much drama just in 3 words, let us explore the second faction. So, coming up with the name, draw 5 more cards, and here we go. I think I've got it. I think we're going to go with the Traeg Republic. Traeg Republic. I just like the sound of the word Republic. It seems very progressive. Okay, so the Traeg Republic. What are the traits of the Traeg Republic? So let's go down to our character motivations table once again. Here we go. D100s. First one is a 77. A lot of double numbers. Okay, so first one is plan. Again, D100. 86. 86 we get... Ooh, revenge. How very dramatic indeed. Now let's real quick pop up 2 Adventure Tone. This one's exciting. This one, Plan Revenge. Oh, it goes so well together. 41. 41. Hard. 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 So we have Plan, Revenge, and Hard. So does that mean that they are all in on planning this revenge, that they're hell-bent on, you know, getting revenge on another faction? Maybe they're getting revenge on the Shan Empire, and that is some of the misfortune that that empire has fallen into as of late in the political environment. So I think that's what we're gonna go with. They're planning revenge, and they're going hard in trying to achieve that revenge. Oh man, we are definitely in a tenuous place in the middle of the verse right now. Things are heating up. Perhaps they have been peaceful over the past few years, and just a series of political movements back and forth across the verse have led us to this place where a couple of our factions are going to be potentially at odds with each other, and there might be an interstellar war breaking out soon. Cool. This is exciting. I am very excited by this. We still got 2 more to go. Real quick. Okay, so 5 more cards. Here we go. Okay, so this one took some time to arrive at, but I think I'm gonna go with the Egg Wilder. And the Egg Wilder Union, we'll call it. So that is a very unique name for sure. Definitely would not have come up with that one off the cuff or through a generator, I bet. So Egg Wilder Union, what are they all about? So again, character motivations table. Here we go. Finding our 2 D100 rolls. Let's go ahead and get that in D100. First one is a 17. 17 on the table is Destroy. Oh no. This is even very violent, and everyone seems to be angry at each other. D100, let's see what they're out to destroy. 45. 45 is important. Destroy something important. Alright, now let's jump back up again. Adventure Tone table. Destroy something important, and the theme behind that, 33. Festive? Destroy important. Festive. Festively destroy something important. Huh. That's interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and write that one down. I am still, in my mind, trying to decipher the meaning of those rules. Destroy. Oops. Important. Festively destroy something important? Destroy an important festivity. That seems like a strange goal for a faction to have. Yeah, this one's gonna take a little bit more thought. Alright, so for this one, I've decided that I'm going to roll another die, another table. This is the objects table. I'm going to see if I can find either the object of the festivities, or maybe there's something else that is that this faction is out to destroy. We get 38. Fragile. Fragile. Sounds Italian. Maybe what this means is there is an important, maybe not even necessarily a festivity, but more of like an important cultural structure or a cultural norm. Maybe this particular faction is out for social reform. Maybe there is a fragile structure in place somehow in their society that many people don't agree with, and they're seeking to abolish whatever that important cultural structure is. Maybe it has been important to a particular culture for however many years up until this point, but maybe now it's starting to become obsolete and times have changed, technology has advanced. Maybe people are looking for a change because of all of those factors. So I'm going to say, as a note to kind of help us decipher in the future, social turmoil. And I'm going to say that this is probably localized within this particular faction space. That just makes the most sense to me. So that is the Igulder Union. They are experiencing some social turmoil where they are trying to destroy a fragile aspect of their society that maybe was once important, maybe it still is. Maybe it's a bad thing that it gets destroyed, and they just don't realize it yet. This will be interesting to explore if we get into that space and talk to some people about it and find out what's really going on. So that's a good foundation. Again, the idea behind all of this is to provide a foundation for a story, just so that we aren't plunging ourselves straight into a vacuum, that we have a basis of some inspiration that we can draw from to kind of put building blocks onto and connect all of these pieces together in a cohesive, understandable way. So moving on to our last faction in the verse. Let's come up with a name real quick. So our last faction is called the Scourdak Dominion. So these guys have a very centralized governmental power in the fact that it's a singular ruler, potentially over the entire interstellar region, and perhaps they have a team of advisors, but for the most part it is going to be pretty much just one individual, or at least maybe a pair of individuals even, but a very select and small group of individuals will be in charge of the Scourdak Dominion. Now, let us investigate the traits of the Scourdak Dominion. So, rolling on the character motivation table. If I can find it again. Here we go. So let's go ahead and dive into this. A couple D100s. D100. First roll gives us an 8. Business. Business oriented. What kind of business? What kind of business with a 21? Ooh, enemy. Enemy business. Now, hopping up to the Adventure Tome table. Final roll gives us a 42. Harsh enemy business. So these guys do not mess around. These are the Space Imperialists. These are basically kind of the inspired by the Star Wars Empire. Yeah, these guys are elitist. They think they are above everyone else. They feel like their dominion should be the only dominion and that they should have ownership and rulership over the entire verse, potentially. But yes, they are rather strict, kind of harsh at times. Maybe the people underneath them don't necessarily all agree with the policies they put into place, but perhaps they are just too strong to argue with. Now that is a scary and exciting set of circumstances. Harsh enemy business. So maybe they make themselves an enemy of the other factions when it comes to business and other political matters. Maybe they make themselves an enemy and they treat other people or their subjects with a harsh sort of mentality. They are not friendly. They are all about business, and their goal is to become the most prosperous and powerful in the verse. Now, this is going to create a very interesting dynamic across the political landscape of the world that we are going to be exploring. And now, the moment that we have all been waiting for. Welcome to the verse. Da, 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 da. This is our star map. Basically, the way that interstellar travel will be conducted is with a technique known as quantum warp. Quantum warp utilizes the natural ley power that flows almost like veins spreading out from the center of known space throughout creation and beyond, and kind of creates these almost quantum highways that ships will be able to be carried along up and down in order to easily traverse great distances in between systems in a relatively short amount of time. I'm drawing inspiration from basically the time heist that was pulled in Infinity War and Endgame, where they used the quantum realm to time travel. Basically, my idea is that quantum warp removes the ship from regular time-space, and ships are able to pass across great distances faster than light travel. So that's kind of the idea behind why all of these lines connecting these systems are all weird looking. Also, consider 3D space does not, translate super well to a 2D kind of representation. So, my thinking is that part of this strange geometry of the lines is not only the fact that they're kind of the veins of the universe, but also they might be popping out of the screen or diving into the screen, depending on, the z-axis that is implied by this map, but not necessarily represented to the most effective way. Regardless, that is the way that people traverse the verse, along these skyways that connect these systems. So each of these blue circles around these planets each of these are individual systems. All these circles are individual systems. The blue ones are faction-controlled areas. So I am going to take time in between sessions to divvy up all of these systems across the 4 factions that we have just created, and depending on maybe some randomness, maybe some inspiration drawn from the roles of the traits of the factions that we have discovered, perhaps that misfortunate Shanem Empire has lost control of certain systems just because of the political landscape they find themselves in. Maybe they have a few less systems that they have ownership over than other factions. But I'm going to take time in between sessions to hash all of that out. And outside of those things, the general explorable space of the systems, there's basically frontier space out along the fringes of what has been explored, and these are worlds that are potentially habitable, but no serious colony has particularly been established out in this region of the space. There's this area called the Gap that is kind of similar. There's just a lot of resources out to be gathered, but no habitable systems take up this area, and it's kind of just this kind of dead spot in the middle of the fringes of explored space. At the very center of this map, there is an area literally called Dead Space, and this is a very anomalous and enigmatic area of the verse, where no information is really known about the planets and systems that reside within. Any attempts to do a deep scan or send probes to do research fail. They lose connection. They are unable to get accurate readings on any solid details. Any ships that venture into dead space never return. It is simply basically the Bermuda Triangle of space. So, due to that nature of the region, the systems that fringe this dead space zone often are fraught with issues with space pirates and raiders and bandits, people who will use the dead space zone event horizon essentially as a kind of a hiding spot, because it's probably the least trafficked area in the whole verse. So they will hide out on the fringes of dead space, send out raiding parties to the systems nearby, and just harass individuals who get caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. So this is where we find ourselves as we sail across the glittering skies. I'm excited to dive into this adventure with you. I'm going to, like I said, take time in between sessions to divvy up these systems across the factions, and also determine, maybe randomly, maybe I'll kind of select it, but which system we are currently at with our character Brick and his crew, and where they find themselves in the middle of this mission to gain the trust of this client, this mysterious new client that they are investigating. Thank you for tuning in and listening. I hope that this has been entertaining, that you are just as excited as I am about diving deeper into this story. And I will catch you all on the next episode when we officially begin the roleplay of Journeys Across the Glittering Skies.